Hi, my name's Katia. I am the residential Final Fantasy VII mega nerd, and I am so excited to tell you about Final Fantasy VII, why it's important, why it's amazing, and why you should probably get into the remake. Spoiler alert, kind of, sort of. I'm gonna be going through the entire timeline of Final Fantasy VII, both the events in-game, before, and a little bit after. So if you know anything about Final Fantasy VII, you definitely know that blonde-headed guy with the spiky hair and the big sword, but more than likely, you know about that scene of Aerith, the girl in the pink dress, getting stabbed by this long-haired dude, and it's actually super tragic, and you're like, Before we get into all of that, let's rewind about 2,000 years, and actually to the ancestors of these two characters. We have the Cetra, who inhabit this planet, and we have Jenova, which is an alien that crash lands and wreaks havoc, and as a result, these Cetra, or later known as Ancients, hide away Jenova into the earth so that she doesn't cause any more destruction, as far as they can tell. 2 or 3 decades before the events of Final Fantasy VII, a company named Shinra is founded, and they've started digging into the earth in search of what's basically called Mako energy. It's like the life force of the planet. While they're digging into the planet to find all of this Mako energy, they discover this weird alien creature in the earth, and they mislabel it as an ancient, when in reality, it's actually Jenova, this like terrible alien that wreaked havoc on the planet like 2,000 years ago. Big bad news. And this is where things get really interesting. They found this creature, which they've labeled as an ancient, and they start doing all these experiments and tests. They start injecting people with the cells of Jenova and putting Mako into them, and essentially they stumble across creating really like powerful human beings, and also kind of sort of creating monsters. One of those super soldiers you guys might know as Sephiroth. And in this point in time, he's actually a good guy, and everybody looks up to him, and it's basically like,
oh my gosh, is that Sephiroth? Can I have his autograph?
And he's got like this long flowing hair, and he's got all these muscles, and he's like super duper strong. So Shinra is in search of all of this cool Mako energy around the planet, and they're expanding, and they've built up essentially an army of these super soldiers to protect their assets. Sephiroth emerges as this super cool guy that everybody on the planet looks up to, including little baby Cloud in Nibelheim. So at the start of Final Fantasy VII, all you know about Cloud is that he's ex-soldier, and he's actually in a fight against the Shinra. But how did we get here? How does he go from idolizing somebody like Sephiroth to becoming an ex-soldier that's fighting Shinra? I'm here to tell you. There are 3 people that go to Nibelheim from Shinra. Cloud as a grunt, this guy named Zack, who is a soldier first class, and Sephiroth. And they're there to investigate all of these monsters that have been popping up around this town, around this Mako reactor. And so they go with the help of somebody named Tifa, which is Cloud's childhood friend. They check out the Mako reactor, and Sephiroth realizes that Shinra is actually creating these monsters that they came out to investigate. So then Sephiroth tries to figure out,
wait, Shinra's creating monsters? Like, when did this start happening?
And he realizes the same process by which these monsters are being created is actually very analogous to the way that Sephiroth himself was created, with the infusion of Mako energy and Jenova cells. And because of all this information coming at him at once, he literally has a mental breakdown and kills everybody, completely razing the entire town of Nibelheim. From there, this guy named Zack, who is the soldier that was also there, both him and Cloud try to fight Sephiroth. Zack gets really badly injured in this whole process. Cloud somehow manages to kill Sephiroth, sort of, and they both get taken in by Shinra and experimented on, and they try to basically keep these 2 guys alive. This is really crucial, and this leads to the entire existential crisis to what Cloud goes through, because Zack, having been in Soldier, has been exposed to Mako energy before. So he's basically incapable of having what's called Mako poisoning. Cloud is a civilian. He's never been exposed to Mako energy, but he has to be exposed to Mako in order to be fixed during this like big battle with Sephiroth. And as a result, this poisoning totally messes his brain up. He essentially has PTSD. He's sort of not even conscious, and they break out. Zack drags poor Cloud halfway across the continent to Midgar in like this big standoff with Shinra. In this big standoff with In this big standoff with Shinra soldiers, it's really hard to say, Shinra soldiers. In this big standoff, Zack protects Cloud and ends up dying. And Cloud, in this weird, hazy, Mako poisoning sort of mind frame, thinks that he's Soldier because he's now in the soldier garb, and he's taken Zack's sword, which is that big Buster sword. So when he shows up at Midgar, it's his childhood friend Tifa, who now lives in Midgar, who finds him and asks him to join in this battle against Shinra. This is where the game actually finally starts, but you don't know any of it. This group of people called Avalanche are based out of Sector 7 in Midgar, and they are fighting Shinra because they're trying to protect the planet from all these horrible things that Shinra's doing, like sucking literally the lifeblood out of the planet in order to like keep their computers and TVs on. Cloud basically gets roped into this fight against Shinra by his like childhood friend because she's worried about him. And this is a great way for her to keep an eye on him because she's realizing, Cloud's talking about all these things in the past that he couldn't possibly have known about because he wasn't there, but then he knows about it. That's super strange. So that's why Tifa basically not only convinces Cloud to join Avalanche, but she also kind of lies to Cloud and never really accounts for the fact that keeping this information away from Cloud keeps him like in the dark about himself, which is really messed up. There's a great deal of like confusion around who the real bad guy of Final Fantasy VII is, because you think it's Shinra, right? Because you're like fighting Shinra, you're trying to protect the planet, and then Sephiroth finally appears and he actually stabs the president of Shinra, and at the same time, this like weird alien called Genova had escaped, and all of this chaos has started happening, and Cloud desperately wants to track down Sephiroth because he's like, wait a minute, he can't just go stabbing people. We have to go after this guy.
Wait, I thought Sephiroth was dead. What is he doing alive, roaming the planet?
So actually what's going on is Sephiroth in his crystallized form is somewhere in like the North Pole. What we're seeing throughout the entirety of the game are Genova cells in the guise or like the appearance of Sephiroth. So actually, this iconic scene of Aerith being stabbed isn't Sephiroth stabbing her, it's actually Genova cells controlled by Sephiroth who stabs her. So technically it's still him, right? Because it's Sephiroth's will, but it's not his body. Okay, so why stab this poor girl in the first place? Well, Aerith is what's called an ancient. She's literally the last known ancient on the planet. And what that means is that she can talk to the planet and by essence, save the world from Sephiroth because she can send out a prayer to what's called holy to like do some sort of magical thing and save the earth. I don't know. They never really talk about it in the game. We just know that Aerith is like the key to saving the planet and then he kills her. There's a lot of confusion around how to pronounce Aerith's name. You could say Aerith and you can say Aerith. And the reason for that is because it was translated weird coming over from Japan to the United States. Although you do typically see Aerith written, and I'm pretty sure Square Enix has officially declared Aerith as the official way to say it, but I grew up with the PlayStation 1 game where we had Aerith, so I say Aerith. You can say whatever you want. I would speculate that the reason why Sephiroth essentially kills Aerith is because he recognizes that Aerith is one of the few ways that he can be defeated. He probably knows that because he has Genova cells in him, and if you have the Genova cells in you, then you are also acquiring the information and the knowledge of Genova as well. When Aerith gets stabbed, not only is Cloud reinvigorated in his pursuit to go after Sephiroth, you essentially start going through the game's like backstory of everyone's different reasons for fighting for the planet, and everybody has a unique point of view. Everybody has a grudge because if they let Sephiroth do whatever he wants, he's gonna kill absolutely everything. And this happens by him summoning this giant thing out of the sky, this calamity out of the sky called Meteor, which is how we have the logo of the game. Okay, so basically what happens, Aerith gets stabbed, all of this happens, but the main plot point is they find out that Sephiroth is still in the northern crater, and eventually they find out even though Aerith died, her prayer to the planet, to protect the planet, Holy, actually went through. Not only that, but Sephiroth's will is keeping the planet from letting Holy emerge to protect it from this gigantic meteor that is hurtling towards them. The team figures out that if they confront Sephiroth and stop Sephiroth, they could stop Meteor. By the end of Disc 3, this is pretty much wrapping up the game, the team realizes that the only way that they could stop Meteor is to stop Sephiroth. So they go to Northern Crater and fight him. Da 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 That's the battle
I'm
music.
assuming that's
So basically, Shinra, bad. Sephiroth, pretty bad. Genova, super bad. Cloud, really confused. Aerith, good. Make sense? So 2 things happen when you're in Northern Crater. You are fighting Genova, or what's left of Genova, and you're fighting actually 2 forms of Sephiroth. Sephiroth essentially has ascended to like godlike status, which is why you see throughout the entire Final Fantasy VII canon, that like one-winged like angel thing, that comes from the final boss, the one-winged angel. And when you defeat Sephiroth, the one-winged angel, you actually have this like super cool fight. It's just Cloud and Sephiroth in their human form, everything stripped down, no extra accoutrement, and Cloud gets his limit break and he's like shoop 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 and kills Sephiroth for good, for real. But that's actually not the end of the game. What really happens is he defeats Sephiroth and Meteor's still coming, and they think that actually they failed. And all of this hard work, everything that they've done was for nothing. And what actually happens is the life force and the life stream and Holy start trickling out of the planet and does its best to stop the meteor. But Meteor ends up crashing into Midgar. And that's it. We don't know what happens. You're like waiting for the end scene and like the credits, and you're like,
Wait, so what happened? Did we like save the planet? Did we not? Like it feels like we did, but it didn't.
and the very, very last story bit that we get from the first game, Final Fantasy VII, this 1997 version, is of these animals running through outskirts of Midgar, and we see a shot of Midgar, and it's totally decimated. Did humans survive? We don't know. Advent Children comes out like years later, and Advent Children is what happens right after Meteor fell. So we find out in Advent Children that when the planet goes to protect itself, it actually accidentally poisons a bunch of people in Midgar. And from there, you have geostigma. But let's not even get into that. That's pretty much everything that there is to know about Final Fantasy VII. You should definitely check out the original game, because even though I've told you all of this, there's all these great little moments in the characters and the story, and there's whole other games like the prequel and Dirge of Cerberus and Crisis Core. There's so much more to the story than just this.
Hey guys, Jared here. Hope you liked that video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe to our channel, and check out the other videos that we have on here. I heard they're pretty great.